Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful, fantastic webinar with all our teachers at My English School. Remember, we're here to help you to improve your English as you're home at the moment, because that's what we're here for, to make you better English speakers. So today, we're looking at Focus 6 to 7, Geography. Now, geography is one of my favorite subjects while I was studying at school. I'm from a small island called Barbados, very tiny island in the Caribbean. This is how you spell it, Barbados. Barbados, Barbados. And the people in Barbados are called Barbadians. So I am a Barbadian. So remember, when you're coming into the chat, just leave us your name, tell us where you're from, and we'll have a discussion together and learn some more English in our MyS webinars. So as I mentioned before, my favorite subject is geography. I studied geography in secondary school, and I did very, very well in geography. I like learning about the world, learning about landscape, learning about populations, the figures, those kind of things I like. So that's why geography is one of my favorite subjects. Okay, so let's begin our focus. Now in this focus activity, we're comparing geographic locations, superlatives, comparatives, and we're going to be looking at also vocabulary. So let's begin. Geography quiz. Let's see how much you know. Where are they? So Lake Baikal is the deepest lake in the world at 1,637 meters deep. It holds 20% of the world's fresh water, and Lake Baikal is in what? The widest river in the world is the Amazon River and the highest waterfall in the world is Angel Falls at 979 meters. It is located in, so you have to tell me the location of each of these landmarks. So we've got Lake Baikal, we've got the widest river in the world, in the Amazon River, and the highest waterfall in the world, Angel Falls. Now, what are the locations of these different geographical landmarks? So Lake Baikal. Good morning, Beatrice. Welcome. She's from Milano. Welcome from Milano. So we've got Lake Baikal. Do you think Lake Baikal is in maybe a country in Asia? Can you think of any countries in Asia that this lake could be located in? I don't know if it's in Asia, but let's see. Yeah, I thought it was Asia, but it's Russia. So Lake Baikal is in Russia. It's the deepest lake in the world at 1,637 meters deep. So it's very, very deep. And it holds 20% of the world's fresh water. So all that water we drink, 20% of that water comes from Russia, Lake Baikal. Hey, morning, Alessio. Welcome from Naples. Great to have you. So just a reminder, my name is Andre, and I'm from a small island called Barbados, but currently I'm living in Rome. Okay, so we got the first one. The first one is Russia. Now let's look at the second fact. We've got the widest river in the world is the Amazon River. And where is the Amazon River located? Can anyone tell me? The Amazon River, where is it located? So it's not located in North America. Maybe if you go a little south, further south from North America, the Amazon River. So the Amazon River is located in South America. Exactly, not North America, but South America. Yeah, Brazil, exactly, Beatrice. In Brazil, South America. Now let's look at the last fact. The highest waterfall in the world is Angel Falls at 979 meters. Where is it located? Can anyone tell me? Angel Falls. And no, it's not located in heaven with the angels. That was my first thought too, but no. So which country is Angel Falls located? In which country? Lacio, Beatrice, any idea? Angel Falls, the highest waterfall in the world. I would like to visit that waterfall. I would. I don't know when, but of course, when all of this lockdown is finished, maybe I can take a trip somewhere to see the largest, or rather the highest waterfall in the world. Venezuela. Beatrice says Venezuela. Let's see. And you're absolutely correct. So Angel Falls is in Venezuela. Yeah, cool. There's been some discussion about whether it's located in Venezuela or Guyana because there have been many conflicts between Guyana and Venezuela in terms of the land. Who does the land belong to? The boundaries. So they say it's located in Venezuela, but I think part of it is located in Guyana. Don't quote me on that one, but I think it can be shared between Venezuela and Guyana. So good. So there's some geography quiz questions about different landmarks around the world. We've got Lake Baikal in Russia, the widest river in the Amazon, which is in South America, in Brazil, and the highest waterfall in the world, Angel Falls in Venezuela. Good job. Great, Alessio. Exactly. Venezuela. So let's look at these geographic locations. So let's identify what they are, and then the next slide we'll match them up with the correct adjectives. So now we're looking at geographic locations. What are these? We've got valley, river, desert, island, canyon, lake, mountains, and cliff. Now we've got picture A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Let's match the words up to the pictures. So picture A, which location or what geographic location is this one? Picture A, what is it? Is it a valley? Is it a river, desert, island, canyon, lake, mountain, or cliff? Alessio and Beatrice, can you guess what picture A is? A valley. Let's see if you're correct. Correct. Excellent, Beatrice. A valley. So remember, a valley is usually situated between two mountains or two hills. So you have one hill, another hill, and then between those two hills or mountains is a valley. Yeah, it's like a depression, but it's called a valley. Excellent. B, river, desert, island, canyon, lake, mountains, and cliff. You've got Alessio, who says B is a mountain. Correct. Yeah. So it's one mountain, but more than one mountain is called mountains. Normally, a range is called a mountain range. Many mountains, a mountain range. So we've got C, Alessio, Beatrice says lake. Correct, it's a lake. Normally, a lake is an area of water surrounded by land. So normally, it's formed in a volcano, maybe in the the center of a volcano, for a dormant volcano. So normally it's a large area in a volcano, or it can be caused by other geographical structures. But it's usually a body of water that's surrounded by land, a lake. Normally the lakes are fresh water and not seawater. So it's not salted usually. Okay, D. So we've said, Alessio said, island. Excellent. An island is a piece of land that's surrounded by water. So this time it's land, but it's surrounded by water, like my island in Barbados in the Caribbean. It's a very small island as well. E, we've got, as Beatrice says, and Alessio, desert. Excellent. Deserts. Can you tell me a location of a desert? Any desert you can think of. What is the location of a desert? Anywhere around the world. There's a popular desert that most people remember. Can anyone tell me a location of a desert anywhere in the world? Okay, guys, you're on the ball with the pictures. Can you tell me a location of a desert? Any desert in the world. Give you a couple seconds. A location of a desert. Okay, I'll give you one. The Sahara Desert. Excellent, Beatrice. Good. We thought about it at the same time. So yeah, the Sahara Desert in Africa. Exactly. Is a desert. It's usually an area of dry land. Normally, these areas in the world have drought. And usually, when there's no water, we call them droughts. So drought is no water. A drought. So a drought is usually when no water is present or very little water is present in a geographical location. So normally deserts have a drought. They're very dry. Okay, F, we looked at F. You guys said cliff. Excellent, cliff. There are many cliffs all over the world, and normally it's a sharp drop of the land to the sea or maybe inland. So it's a very sharp or steep, a steep geographical location, a cliff. And G, we've got river. Yeah, excellent, guys. River. River. This one looks like a river in Florence, is it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as Beatrice mentioned, it's the Arno River in Florence. And H, finally, is a canyon. Excellent. So we have all these different geographical features. We call them geographical features. We've got valley, mountains, lake, island, desert, cliffs, river, and canyon. There are many more geographical features that we can find inland and of course out to sea as well. There are many more geographical locations and features. We've got peninsulas, we've got a bay, we've got many more, but we can't go through all of them today. So yeah, exactly, Leah. So when it doesn't rain for a long time, usually it's a drought. There's no water. And normally deserts don't have a lot of rain, so normally it's a drought in the desert. Excellent. So let's match these adjectives with their opposites. So we've got wide, deep, high, low, narrow, and shallow. So these are adjectives describing, how should I say, describing the size of something, the depth of something. So we're going to match them up to the opposite. So we've got wide, deep, and high. So let's match wide. What is the opposite of wide? Can anyone tell me? What is the opposite of wide? We've got low, narrow, and shallow. So Lacio or Beatrice, can you tell me what is the opposite of wide? I know what it is, but do you guys know? Wide, the opposite of wide. Is it low? Is it narrow? Is it shallow? There's a song that we usually sing in English that helps you to remember the opposite of wide. It's a popular song we used to sing in primary school, and it helps us remember the opposites. So if you were thinking the opposite of wide is narrow. Yeah, the opposite of wide is narrow. Wide, very wide, and narrow. Wide and narrow. So narrow is a smaller distance, while wide is a further distance, basically. Exactly. Wide and narrow, not shallow, wide and narrow. So we're looking at wide or narrow. So another word for wide is also broad. A synonym for wide is broad. Yeah, another synonym for wide is broad. Normally it's a British term. Broad is a British form of wide. So guys, you got that one wrong. So it's wide or narrow. Opposite is narrow and wide. Let's look at deep. Deep this time is shallow. So you guys got it mixed up. So wide is narrow and deep is shallow. So deep and then shallow. So this is shallow and this is deep. Yeah, so for example, deep sea, meaning the sea is very deep. Yeah, the distance from the level, sea level, to the bottom of the sea is very, very far. So it's deep. Sometimes, usually, a lake, maybe a little small lake, might be shallow. A lake might be shallow, not very high. So shallow. The distance from the lake level to the top to the bottom is very shallow. Yeah, deep and shallow, and high and low, of course, is one that you're most familiar with. So remember, the opposite of wide is narrow. Another word for wide is broad. The opposite of deep is shallow. Yeah, deep and shallow. And then, of course, high and low. Excellent. So remember these adjectives because they're very important for the next activity. So always remember those adjectives. Good. Describing geographic features. Now, what adjectives would you use to describe these geographic features? So remember those features we just learned. We've got valley, we've got river, we've got canyon, lake, mountains, and cliffs. Alessio says, for example, I can't dip in the lake because it's very shallow. Okay. You can't swim in the lake because it's very shallow. Yeah, because you can't swim because it's very shallow. Yeah, so the top of the lake is not very far from the bottom of the lake. Exactly. So you're standing in the lake, but you can't swim. In the sea now, the sea is very deep. You can't swim in the sea because you have enough water to swim in. Or you can say, maybe, for example, you can say, the pool, the swimming pool, is too shallow. You're not able to swim in it because there's not enough water height. So in that case, the swimming pool is too shallow, you cannot swim in it. But the swimming pool is deep, very, very deep, meaning a lot of water, a high level of water. Good. So now let's look at describing these geographic locations or features rather with these specific adjectives we just learned. So we've got valley, we've got river, canyon, lake, mountains, and cliffs. So we have to decide if these things are wide and narrow, deep and shallow, or high and low. So let's look at valley, guys. Is a valley wide and narrow, deep and shallow, or high and low? Remember, for these geographic features, we can use more than one adjective. So what do you think for valley? Is it wide, narrow, deep, shallow, or high and low? Alessio or Beatrice, can you tell me? Okay, Beatrice says valley can be shallow or deep. Okay. Any other ideas? Valley can be wide, shallow, and low, Alessio says. Let's look at it. So valley can be wide and narrow or deep and shallow. Excellent. Not necessarily low or high. We don't use low and high to represent valley because it's a depression between two mountains or two hills. So normally we say it's wide or narrow or deep or shallow. Yeah, not high or low. Because generally a valley is not a physical structure in a sense. It's a void. It's nothing there. It's just a depression. So we usually use deep or shallow and wide and low. Now for river, Beatrice says wide or narrow. Let's see if she's correct. You're correct, wide or narrow, but also deep and shallow. Because remember, a river is also a body of water. So the level of water can be deep or it can be shallow. So some rivers are deep and some rivers are shallow. And of course, the length of the river, the width of the river rather, can be wide or it can be narrow. Could be a big wide river or a little narrow river. Good, excellent. We don't use high or low for rivers. Let's look at canyon. What about a canyon? Now, canyons are more popular. You'll know of canyons, of heard about canyons in the United States. So the United States is very popular for their canyons. The canyons are like valleys, but they're not called valleys because between these depressions are very tall structures, like cliffs. So between these cliffs, normally they call them canyons, and they're usually very, what adjective do we use for canyons? Very deep or shallow and wide or narrow, just like the valley. It's a canyon is like a valley, but it's not because on each side of the canyon there are cliffs, usually not mountains. So canyons can be wide or narrow, deep or shallow. Excellent. Now let's look at, nope, not high, Beatrice. We don't use high, only deep, shallow, or wide and narrow. Now mountains. How can we describe mountains? Are they wide, narrow, deep, shallow, or high and low? Oops, sorry, lake. My bad. Lake. Lake. Forgot my glasses this morning. So a lake. So Alessio says lake can be wide and narrow, deep and shallow. Okay, let's see. So a lake can be deep or shallow. It can't be high or low. It can't be wide or narrow. But why can't it be wide or narrow? Wide and narrow is usually for a specific shape. Yeah. So normally if something is for elongated, if elongated, maybe it's in a rectangle or maybe it's in a square per se, it's a more structured shape. Yeah. So normally for a lake is usually round. It's usually in a round shape, a circular shape, a very odd shape. So in this case, we cannot measure wide or narrow. Yeah, because normally it's a circle. With circles, we don't usually use wide or narrow circles. We use big or small circles. So a lake, in this sense, we don't use wide or narrow. We don't use high or low, but we only use deep or shallow. So a lake is deep or shallow. It can be big or small, but not wide or narrow. A river, on the other hand, is not a circular. It's not a circular feature. It's an elongated feature. It's like a rectangle or a longer shape. So we use wide or narrow. So lake is deep or shallow. Remember that. Good, excellent, Beatrice. So now let's look at mountains. Mountains. What adjectives can we use with the feature mountains? This one should be easy. Excellent, Alessio. So mountains are high and low. High or low. Exactly. There's no deep or shallow. There's no wide or narrow. It's a structure. So it's either high or low. Simple. Good. So excellent. So these are the adjectives we use with these specific geographic features. Valley can be wide or narrow, can be deep or shallow. A river can be the same, wide, narrow, deep, shallow. Canyon can also be the same, wide or narrow, deep or shallow. And remember, canyons are similar to valleys, but remember, valleys are between a hill or between two hills or two mountains, while canyons are between cliffs, very high cliffs. Lake, we said deep or shallow because it's a body of water. From the top of the lake to the bottom can be deep or shallow. But remember, a valley is a landlocked body of water. It's surrounded by land. So we can't say wide or narrow because it's a circular shape, basically. Then we looked at mountains. Mountains can be high or low, yeah. And cliffs can be high or low, just like the mountains. So the cliff is like a tall mountain, but of course it's more like a cliff. It's more, how should I say, steep. It's steeper. Yeah, so a cliff can only be high or low. A cliff is not deep or shallow, but a canyon between cliffs are deep and shallow. Good, so we learned those. Those can be very tricky, very difficult sometimes to remember. Yeah. So practice those adjectives. So now let's look at describing our town. So we need to describe our city or our town using these questions below. So number one, how would you describe the streets in your city or home or hometown? Are they narrow or are they wide? Number two, what is its most important source of water? Is it fresh water or salt water? And three, what is the geography of your city or hometown? Any mountains, valleys, or cliffs, or anything else? So let's look at number one. Let's describe our city, our town, or our hometown. So how would you describe the streets in your city or town? Narrow or wide? So let me start. In my country, in my small little island of Barbados, the streets are usually narrow. Yeah, very narrow streets. They're not wide streets because it's a small island. We have a very small piece of land. So normally our roads are very narrow, very small roads. But generally on the highway, yeah, on the larger roads, they're usually wider. They have two lanes on each side, so four lanes for traffic. So normally the highways are wider, but the normal streets are narrow, very narrow. Alessio, so in your hometown, how are your streets? Are they narrow or are they wide? And Beatrice, are the streets in your hometown narrow or are they wide? Can you tell me? In my country, our streets are usually narrow, but the highways are usually wide. How would you describe your streets in your hometown? I know in Naples, they have very narrow streets. Yeah, very narrow streets, just like in Rome as well. Very narrow streets in the center. They're very small streets. Yeah, can only take one car in one direction sometimes. I know in Milan, maybe the streets are a little more or a little wider in Milan. Yeah, the streets are wider, maybe, compared to Naples and Rome. Yeah, but if you go on the highway, it's usually the roads are very wide or broad. Okay, let's look at number two. What is its most important source of water? Is it fresh water or is it salt water? So in your hometown, in your city or town, what is the largest source of water? Is it a lake? Is it a river? Is it the sea? Is it salt water? Is it fresh water? Well, for my country, the largest source of water is the sea because it's a small island surrounded by a lot of water. So in my island, the source of water is the sea, and the sea is salt water. It's sale, salt, compared to a lake, which is fresh water, or a river, which is fresh water. So Beatrice says she lives in Milan, and the streets are wide and narrow. Yeah, it depends on where you go in Milan. So, but generally, Milan has wider streets. But of course, in the very center, among the historic center, it's usually very narrow streets as well. And Lacio says in his city, it depends on the streets. There are narrow and there are wide streets. Yeah, it depends. But I know in the center, basically, it's usually very, very narrow streets. Yeah. So Alessio says in his city, the most important source of water is salt water because there is a sea. Yeah, exactly. In Naples, Naples has a lot of sea. A lot of people come from all over Italy to go to Naples because the sea is there as well. It's good for fishing, it's good for tourism. Yeah, and it's salt water, of course, the sea. Yeah. Cool. What about Milan, Beatrice? What is your largest source of water? What is the most important source of water for you guys in uh, in Milan? So Alessio says it's the sea in Naples. Well, what is the most important source of water in Milan? I know there is not a river, at least I don't think so. Water for us is the aquifers. Excuse me, the aquifers. Now, the aquifers are usually underground. So an aquifer, let me spell it for you. Aquifer is an important source of fresh water. An aquifer is a collection of water underground, under the ground. It usually accumulates from rainwater. When the rain falls, it accumulates under the ground. And that's where, in my country, we get most of our fresh water, from under the ground. Because our island is made up of something called limestone, made of coral. You know the coral reefs? Yeah, some islands are made of coral, which is limestone, and some are made of volcanic rocks. But my country is made of limestone, and limestones offer the ability for water to collect underground, which is called an aquifer. Yeah. Okay, Beatrice said the most important source of water, excuse me, the most important source of water is from lake or river from the north of Italy. Good. So Milan receives their water from the mountains from the north in terms of rivers and of course lakes. They have lakes as well. So that's the important, for your important source of especially fresh water to drink. Yeah, but Milan doesn't have the sea. So you have to depend on the water from the north, from the river. Excellent. Good. Number 3, what is the geography of your city or hometown? Any mountains, any valleys, cliffs, canyons, any geographical or geological features, rather. Geological features. Any mountains, valleys, cliffs in your hometown? In Milan, in Naples? Well, I know in Rome, some of the geological features that you can find are basically are rivers. Is a river. Rome has a river. We don't have mountains in Rome. Another geological feature could be, or geographic feature could be hot springs. Yeah, hot springs. The terms, the water, hot water. So that's another geological feature or geographical feature. Hot springs, hot water from under the ground. Yeah, that's another geological feature as well. What about in Naples and in Milan? What are some geological features? Valleys, cliffs, anything else? Canyons, mountains, volcano. Volcano is another geological feature as well. So I know in Naples, there's a volcano. So Laser says in his city, there's a particular type of mountain, a volcan, yeah, which is a volcano. So volcano is a type of mountain. And mountains are normally formed from volcanoes. That's how you get the mountain ranges. That's how you get the Alps. The Alps is formed by not only volcanic activity, but the movement of the Earth's crust, the movement of the plates. So yeah, volcano is a type of mountain. In Milan, there aren't mountains. Remember, mountains are plural, so there aren't mountains, Beatrice. Valleys or cliffs. So there are valleys and cliffs, Beatrice? I don't think so, because there aren't any mountains. Maybe there could be a cliff. I don't know. Milan generally is not necessarily shallow. You would say Milan is flat. Milan is flat. Milan is flat, meaning the land is not mountainous or high. It's just at one level, basically. It's flat. So Milan is flat. Just like most of the north part of the northern, between the south and the north is usually a flat. It's called a plateau. A plateau. Or not necessarily a plateau, but a plateau is like a high mountain, but very flat on the top. But Milan is basically, how do you go? A plain. A plain. A plain, meaning a plain is usually a flat area of land. A plain. So Milan is a plain. Usually that area in, I think, not Bologna. Bologna? I think so. But that area further north, but not quite north, it has a lot of flat land. So Milan is flat, but Naples is mountainous. Yeah, mountainous. Has a lot of mountains. Vesuvius. Yeah, the volcano Vesuvius. Good. In my country, normally our geological features are hills. Generally, Barbados is flat. It's a very low-lying land. It's flat in the west, but in the east of the island, it's very hilly. A lot of hills. Hills, another geological feature. Hills. They're not quite as high as mountains, but they're lower than mountains. So in my country, there are hills, and there are valleys between those hills. So we have valleys too, but not very, very deep valleys. We've got springs. Springs are normally like small little rivers, but the water generates from under the ground. Small little streams of water are called springs. The water comes from underground. We have cliffs. We have cliffs as well on the east of the island, very high cliffs. But generally, most of Barbados is flat. Yeah, it's flat. And we're surrounded by the sea. Excellent, guys. Very, very good. Okay, so let's look at more geographical locations. We're going to be looking at superlatives and we're going to be looking at comparatives as well. Oh, Beatrice says, I can say that Milano is on Padana's or plain. Padana's plain. Excellent. So it's a plain. Yeah, it's a plain. Excellent. Good. So let's look at this one. The US is the world's third largest country in size. It is 2 times larger than the European Union. Its geography is very diverse, and you can find everything from tropical islands in Hawaii and Florida to cliffs, canyons, and deserts in the southwest. Death Valley in California is deeper than the Grand Canyon. At 86 meters, it is the lowest point in the country. Denali in Alaska is the tallest mountain at 6,198 meters in the US and in North America. Crater Lake in Oregon is 589 meters deep, and it's also the 9th deepest lake in the world. The Mississippi River is the longest river in the US and the 4th largest river in the world. So let me read that again for you. So the US is the world's 3rd largest country in size. It is 2 times larger than the European Union. Its geography is very diverse, and you can find everything from tropical islands in Hawaii and Florida to cliffs, canyons, and deserts in the southwest. Death Valley in California is deeper than the Grand Canyon. At 86 meters, it is the lowest point in the country. Denali in Alaska is the tallest mountain, 6,198 meters in the US and in North America. Crater Lake in Oregon is 589 meters deep, and it's also the 9th deepest lake in the world. The Mississippi River is the longest river in the US and the 4th longest river in the world. So good, we're talking about the different geological features in the United States. Now here we have many different superlatives. Remember the superlatives. We've got superlatives, we've got short adjectives, use est. So for superlative short adjectives, use est. And superlatives, long adjectives, use most. So long adjectives use, my spelling is terrible, use most, while the short adjectives use est. Once again, est for short adjectives and most for long adjectives. Excellent. Good. So let's look at the superlatives in this text. So Beatrice says largest. Good. We've got largest. What other superlatives can we find? What about you, Alessio? So Beatrice says largest. What's another superlative in this text? Any other superlatives? First one is largest. So the third largest country in size is the United States. Then we've got lowest. We've got lowest. So at 86 meters, Grand Canyon is the lowest point in the country. So lowest is another superlative. You've got tallest, exactly. Denali in Alaska is the tallest mountain. And any other superlatives we can find? Deepest, excellent. So we've got the Oregon Lake is the 9th deepest lake in the world. And any others? I think we've got one more superlative. Excellent, Alessio. Longest is there twice. Longest river in the US is the Mississippi River, and it's the 4th longest river in the world. Excellent. Now let's look at the comparatives. Remember the comparatives. Comparatives. We've got short adjectives use ER. Yeah. Then we've got the long adjectives. Long adjectives use more. Always remember those two different types of comparatives. You've got the long adjectives, you've got more, and the short adjectives, we've got ER. Yeah, good. So we've got larger, as Alessio says. What other comparatives do we have here? Larger. Any others you can find, or that's it? Deeper as well. Excellent. Deeper. Any others there? I think that's it. We think larger and deeper. I don't see any others there. So I think those are the two comparatives we found in this text. Now let's look at ordinal numbers. You guys can remember ordinal numbers? So remember, ordinal numbers show position, or we can also use them for dates. We use them for dates in English as well. Yes, Beatrice, larger than and deeper than. Excellent. Always remember, sometimes when we're comparing two things, we use than. Larger than, bigger than for comparisons. Nope, there aren't any more, Alessio. So let's look at the ordinal numbers. Can you find the ordinal numbers in this text? Remember, ordinal numbers are used for position, of course, used for dates. Can you match, or can you find, rather, the ordinal numbers? There are a few in there. Do you remember the ordinal numbers? So the first one, let me give you the first one. So the first ordinal number is third. Third is the ordinal number. So we've got third. Is the first one, third. So for example, I came third in the marathon. I came third. That was my position. Or if you want to use it for date, today is the 3rd of May. It's not, but just an example. So the first one is third. What is another one? Another ordinal number in the text. First one is third. What is another? If you don't know, the next ordinal number is ninth. You've got ninth at the bottom here. So ninth. Ninth. Good. So here we're using the ordinal numbers to show the position between these different geological land masses or geological features. So at the top we have the US is the world's third largest country in size. So which means that United States is number 3 among the countries in terms of size. So it's the third largest country in the world in terms of size. Then we have the Oregon Lake is the 9th deepest lake in the world. So its position is at number 9 as one of the deepest lakes in the world in terms of their position. It's 9th deepest lake in the world. So there are 8 other lakes that are deeper than Lake Oregon. So that's when we use the ordinal numbers to show position. Could be in competition, it could be between different things to show position, or we can use it for dates. Good. Excellent. So let's move on. So we've got the superlatives and we've got the ordinal numbers and the comparatives as well. So guys, today we learned about adjectives describe the different geological features. Remember, we had the valley. Valleys can be deep or shallow or narrow or wide. So remember, wide, narrow, deep, shallow. We also had, let's go back for a moment, excuse me. We also had, let's go back. We've got high and low as well. Remember, valley can be wide or narrow, deep or shallow. A river can be wide or narrow, deep or shallow. Canyon is the same, wide, narrow, deep, shallow. Lake can only be deep or shallow. Mountains, high or low only. And cliffs, high or low. So remember those. Remember, another word for wide is broad. In the UK, they use broad. Internationally, generally, they use wide. Remember, we looked also at the superlatives. Remember, the short superlatives, we use est, but the long superlatives, we use most. The short adjectives for comparatives, we use er. And for the long adjectives, we use more. Also remember that the opposite of wide is narrow, opposite of deep is shallow, and the opposite of high is low. Great job, guys. Thanks for joining us, Beatrice and Alessio, and everyone else who are watching. Remember to stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more webinars to help you improve your English during this time that you're home. We're here for you to help you improve your English. See you later. Take care. See you next time. Have a good day.